Welcome to Swords and Hammers, where truth comes clothed in tales, and the soul remembers what the mind forgets. The world is loud, but for these few minutes, it can wait. Settle in and listen well. The debt that would not die, a tale of what mercy requires. There are debts that can be counted, and there are debts that swallow the soul. This tale concerns a man named Corvin, who learned the difference too late. He owed the king a sum so vast that the scribes who recorded it grew weary in the writing. 10,000 talents, a fortune beyond fortunes, a weight no mortal back could bear. The debt had accumulated slowly, as debts do, each borrowing small enough to justify. A failed harvest here, a sunken ship there, a venture that promised much and delivered ruin. Corvin had signed his name again and again, and now the signatures had become a noose. The day of reckoning arrived, as such days always do, without mercy, without warning. The king's men found Corvin at his breakfast table and dragged him through streets still wet with morning rain. His wife and children followed behind, weeping, for they too would be sold to satisfy the debt. The great hall loomed before them like a tomb, its pillars dark, its windows narrow, its silence heavy as the grave. Corvin was thrown upon the stones before the throne. The king regarded him from above, and in that gaze, Corvin saw his own damnation. "You owe me 10,000 talents, the king said, his voice flat as a funeral bell. You cannot pay. Corvin's tongue cleaved to the roof of his mouth. What words could answer such a truth? Sell him, the king commanded. Sell his wife, his children, all that he possesses. Let the debt be satisfied, as far as flesh and blood can satisfy it. The guards moved forward. Corvin heard his wife scream behind him. And then something broke within him, some final wall of pride, and he threw himself forward onto his face. "Patience, my lord," he gasped into the cold stone. "Have patience with me, and I will pay you everything. I swear it. I will pay every coin." It was a lie, of course. He could not pay the interest on such a sum, let alone the principal. But the king didn't laugh. The king didn't sneer. Instead, a long silence filled the hall, and when Corvin dared to lift his eyes, he saw something he did not expect. He saw pity. The king descended from his throne, step by slow step, until he stood above the prostrate man. "Rise," the king said quietly. Corvin rose, trembling. The king looked at him for a long moment, and then spoke words that would haunt Corvin for the rest of his days. "I forgive the debt." Corvin blinked. "All of it. 10,000 talents. Gone. You owe me nothing. Take your family and go free." The scribes gasped. The guards stood frozen. Corvin's wife fell to her knees in the back of the hall, sobbing with relief. And Corvin himself stood mute, unable to comprehend the magnitude of what had been given. He walked out of that hall a free man. The sun had broken through the clouds. The rain had ceased. The world itself seemed new. 10,000 talents, erased as though they had never been. He should have fallen on his face in gratitude. He should have wept until no tears remained. He did neither. The road home wound through the village market, and there Corvin saw a face he knew. The man's name was Harmon, a poor warehouse worker who had once borrowed a small sum from Corvin in better days. 100 silver pieces, an amount enough to notice, not enough to ruin, a debt between neighbors, long overdue. Harmon saw Corvin and went pale. You, Corvin said, and his voice had changed. The relief had curdled into something darker. You owe me money. Harmon stumbled backward. I do, sir. I confess it. But please give me time. I will pay everything. The words were an echo. The same desperate plea Corvin himself had uttered not an hour before, face down on the cold stones before the king. But Corvin did not hear the echo, or perhaps he had heard it, and felt nothing. His hands shot out and seized Harmon by the throat. "Pay me now," Corvin hissed, his fingers tightening. "Pay me what you owe." Harmon clawed at the grip, his face darkening. "I cannot," he wheezed. "Please, have mercy." But mercy had become a foreign word. Corvin dragged the gasping man through the market, past the staring vendors and craftsmen, past the silent crowd, straight to the magistrate's house. "This man owes me 100 silver pieces," he declared. "Throw him in prison until the debt is paid." The magistrate hesitated. He had heard what happened in the king's hall that morning. The whole village had heard. But the law was the law, and Corvin demanded his rights. Harmon was taken to the debtors' cells, that dark place beneath the courthouse, where men rotted until their families could scrape together enough to buy their freedom. The village saw what Corvin did, and the village remembered what had been done for him. They saw a man forgiven 10,000 talents, strangling a neighbor over 100 silver pieces. They saw hands that had been unshackled by grace now shackling another, and they were horrified. One among them, a woman who had known Corvin's mother, walked the long road to the king's hall. She did not seek audience for herself. She sought justice for Harmon, and truth for the king. She told the servants what she had witnessed. The servants told the chamberlain told the king. The king listened in silence. When the woman finished, his face had become something terrible to behold. He summoned Corvin. The great hall felt different now. The narrow windows let in less light. The shadows between the pillars seemed deeper. The silence pressed upon the ears like a physical weight. Corvin stood again before the throne, but this time no plea would save him. "Wicked servant," the king said, and though his voice was soft, it filled every corner of the hall. "I forgave you 10,000 talents because you begged me. I erased a debt that would have crushed your children's children. I gave you what you could never have earned." Corvin opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. "Should you not have shown the same mercy to your fellow servant?" the king continued. "Should you not have forgiven 100 silver pieces, as I forgave you 10,000 talents?" The question hung in the air, unanswerable. Corvin stood exposed, his cruelty laid bare, his ingratitude manifest. "You received my mercy with your hands," the king said slowly, "but not with your heart. You took the pardon, but refused the transformation. You walked out of this hall unchanged, and by that unchanged heart, you have condemned yourself." The king raised his hand. "Deliver him to the torturers," he commanded. "Let him remain in their keeping until he has paid everything he owes." The guards seized Corvin. He screamed, a long, terrible sound that echoed off the stone walls. 10,000 talents, a sum beyond counting, a debt beyond paying. The sentence was, in effect, eternal. They dragged him down into darkness, and the hall fell silent. Here is the truth this tale would press upon your heart. Corvin was not a monster. He was merely a man who received a gift too large to comprehend and too demanding to accept. Forgiveness came to him, but it did not come into him. It touched his circumstances, but not his character. It changed his ledger, but not his soul. And so he became a horror. The man forgiven everything became the man who would forgive nothing. The hands that had been freed from chains became hands that chained another. This is the peculiar danger of cheap grace, of pardon without penetration, of mercy received but never believed. You know this danger. You have nursed the grudge that will not die. You have kept the record of wrongs in some locked chamber of your heart. You have received kindness and extended cruelty. You have accepted patience and offered none. These are not small matters. They are diagnostic. The unforgiveness you harbor reveals what the mercy you claim has failed to change. If you truly grasped what you owed, if you truly saw the depth of your debt before the king, you could not close your hands around another's throat over a pittance. It would be impossible. The arithmetic forbids it. 100 silver pieces against 10,000 talents, a cup of water against the sea. Mercy is not a feeling to be summoned. It is a decision to be made. You need not like those who have wronged you. You must release them. You need not forget what they did. You must cancel the debt. And if you will not, if you find your fingers tightening when patience is asked of you, then something has gone terribly wrong. The gift that should have changed everything has changed nothing. The pardon that should have unmade your hardness has left it whole. The torturers wait for such hearts, not because God delights in punishment, but because unforgiveness is itself a prison. The bitter soul has already begun its sentence. Judgment merely confirms what it chose. So let this tale do its dark work. Let it descend into the locked chambers of your heart and drag your hidden grudges into the light. Let it ask you what the king asked Corvin. Should you not have shown mercy, as mercy was shown to you? The throne room remains open. The king still forgives debts beyond counting. But mercy received must become mercy given, or it was never truly received at all. Selah.